Weaker Bulgaria in exchange for a chunkier Austria. Not sure how I feel about that. Yeah. Okay, so the Netherlands is taking out... Germany is taking out the Netherlands and grows ever larger. Didn't get East Asia, though. But I think that was only possible because the Netherlands had their revolution. Who else do we need to check? Ukraine. Ukraine, no volunteers. So the Reichspakt has basically stopped sending volunteers now. Like, completely. Not even to the AUS. Oh no, Sweden's in the AUS. Brave old Sweden. There we go. Sweden sending the volunteers. They've got them in Argentina, League of Six Provinces, Qing, and also AUS. Which also means that Qing is no longer being supported by the Reichspakt, which is a big frickin' mistake. Maybe they feel like they've done enough damage to Vientiane, though I find that a little bit questionable. Although Germany lost their volunteers, but the others wouldn't have. I wonder if Germany's going to start sending some now. Meanwhile, Canada is still in a war against Wadice. They're not able to do any. Who else do we have? Australasia. Princely Federation took 2 states, so Princely Fed grows larger. Australasia, not doing anything. Dominion of India is sending a lend-lease... No, the USA is sending a lend-lease to India. So clearly trying to capitalise on India's manpower. And I'm guessing that India's going to be going after Princely Fed soon, and they are. What other players have we not clicked on? France is fighting against Wadice. They wouldn't be able to do anything. I feel like I'm forgetting... Oh, Ireland. What's Ireland doing? Volunteers to Chile. And only Chile. Argentina is supported by Sweden and only Sweden. Did TNT avoid the Civil War? Yes, they did. And how are the losses looking? So the USA is losing more and more men. 383,000. That's another 100,000 since we checked last. Meanwhile, the AUS has lost another 300,000 since we last checked, so they are definitely struggling a little. And the PSA is starting to incur some more significant casualties against the US because of their war over Wisconsin. That is a pretty nice PSA, I've got to say. Meanwhile, war against these guys. It kind of looks like Romania is doing a pretty good job holding up the Austrians. Now, are these guys getting volunteers? Yes, from Russia and Japan. So the CoPro doing a good job with the volunteers, which again, CoPro are the team that we saw win last week in Game 4, and we know that they have a history of sending volunteers quite aggressively, and we are seeing that play out again. Meanwhile, Vientiane continues their war... I'll click on you, thank you. Against... these guys, they are continuing to attack a bit more aggressively. We're starting to see Qing beginning to struggle a little bit in terms of equipment and manpower. Because they've had all the volunteers withdrawn, it's now just a matter of time for Qing to fall. I really wonder why the Reichspakt has withdrawn so aggressively from China. I think that's a big mistake. Is Germany going to start sending volunteers again? Nope. No, they are not. I think Qing's going to lose this. Yeah, undoubtedly. I mean, Vientiane is being a little bit optimistic and leaving just a unit on this border, but then again, that's a major river crossing. But League of Eight Provinces does have a lot of troops. And more importantly, a basically untouched economy. I do think that League of Eight Provinces should have been sent guns by Reichspakt, though. I think that's another mistake. Islamic Federation of Turkestan is currently fighting against Alash Order. I doubt that anyone's getting involved in that. No, they are not. Let's go click on Flanders Wallonia. Give us a bit of a quieter time. Although, actually, no, let's go and take a look at Austria, because Austria is doing the most interesting assaults right now, going pretty aggressively against Romania, and I don't think that Romania is going to hold out for very long. Greece stayed completely out of this, and maybe we'll see Bulgaria going against Greece on their own, because Bulgaria definitely can take Greece out. Greece tends to be something of the weak link in the Balkan Pact. I almost said Baltic Pact. I know it's not. And we have some Serbian forces holding out in Serbia, though they are completely encircled, so I don't see them lasting very long. Bucharest has fallen, they just need to take Kashau. Meanwhile, Bulgaria doing nothing. Oh no, Bulgaria's in the war. Bulgaria has declared war on Romania and Serbia now. So we're starting to see some aggressive moves from them, moving up into Romania. And yeah, it looks like for now, Greece is going to be left alone. Meanwhile, SRI, what are you doing? Don't want to look after their focuses in case they're going after Risorgimento. Wardai has capitulated, so this is going to mean that France... In fact, a whole bunch of the Entente nations were in this war. So this is going to free them up to send volunteers, potentially, although we've seen almost no volunteers from the Entente whatsoever. So their ability to do some geopolitical maneuvers is limited, because they're not even trying. How does CoPro win? Well, glad you asked that, because there are a bunch of victory points which different nations are fighting over, and those victory points can be seen there on that spreadsheet. And in fact, that needs to be updated. Is this even showing the final? Yes, it is. So the tab right at the end is the final. Kind of wish that was made the default one now, but the final tab, the last tab, is that one. Unfortunately, I can't link to a tab, I don't think. I can only link to this document. So go check that out. And I'm just going to go to Nightbot and update that command to say see last tab. Bulgaria declared war on Greece. There we go. Saw that one coming. Saw that one coming from a mile off. Oh, and you know what I forgot? Oh no, music's on. But this is not the regular Kaiserreich, so we get blocked by March of Eagles. We had to use a workaround to stop us from getting hit by Kaiserreich update, which is coming this weekend, but which would have interrupted this game. So we had to come up with a workaround. Okay, so Bulgaria, as anticipated, is attacking pretty hard into Greece, and seeing as this is the entire Bulgarian army, they should be able to do this pretty easily. They're parking their fleet in the eastern Mediterranean Sea to provide naval attacks, which will be going here, here, and here. So their offensive should not really be met with any real problems. Shore bombardment -4. Only 4? I guess they only have like 1... Oh no, they have 3 capitals. Anyway, Dominion of India attacking into the Princely Federation. Is the Dominion of India getting any reinforcements? No, they're just getting the American Lend-Lease. Meanwhile, Princely Federation is also not getting any volunteers, so it looks like every faction is really reducing their volunteer usage. Meanwhile, we do see German and Ukrainian volunteers in Qing again, although quite a lot of damage has been done. We're also seeing volunteers being sent to the League of Eight Provinces. So Germany once more starting to get thrown into the deep end. Canada has no volunteers, and in fact they've taken all of the West Indies troops. And the USA continues to fight. They've taken Biloxi, they've taken Baton Rouge, they've taken New Orleans, but since then we've not seen a huge amount of movement on the front lines. AUS is looking weaker and weaker. They're at 70% capitulation. They've only got 18 factories. PSA are at about 65 to the United States is 90. Once they take that, they'll be at 110. So they'll have roughly the industrial double the industrial capacity of the PSA. But the PSA is just going to have territory in their favor, and particularly the entirety of the Rockies and the Sierra Nevadas, which is going to be a massive pain for the USA to fight across. So PSA is looking strong. I'm pretty happy with how the PSA is done. They're holding on to their northern territories and holding off the Americans. Though right now the American ambitions and front lines are primarily focused against the AUS. Looks like France just sent some volunteers out there. If we just go and click on France, we can see, yes, they are indeed sending volunteers to the USA and also Lend-Lease. What's Australasia doing? Last game we saw Australasia massively supporting American efforts. At the moment they're being a little bit quieter, they're not really doing as much. But I think right now the area of most interest is this. They've just got a big cutoff. That's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 divisions caught out from Qing. That's going to be a big, big blow. Qing's units definitely starting to feel the pinch in terms of equipment. League of 8 provinces still looking pretty strong, but they're still fighting across this river, and they ain't going to get them very far. War in the desert. The Ottomans have ruled over the Levant and the Arab territories. That is the Kaiserreich War against the Ottoman Empire. Is Persia going to pick a side? Yemen's have rebellion. Persia has indeed joined the Kaiserreich against the Ottomans. Is Bulgaria in a position to go after them? Bulgaria still fighting against Greece. Greece being supported by Russia and Japan. Ooh, I like it. So right now, the Bulgarians not pushing in. We do have Russian volunteers moving north, which are going to be a big problem for Bulgaria, actually. These are mountains with forts. And if we stick some, what I imagine are fairly hefty Russian volunteer forces defending that, I like that. Where are the Japanese? There they are. Oh, it was one Russian, one Japanese. Okay. That's going to be causing problems. Meanwhile, Bulgaria, for some reason, stalling their attack. Not even preparing an attack. At the moment, they could be benefiting hugely from planning preparation. They can get up to a 36% bonus if they were attacking, but right now they don't seem interested in doing that. Meanwhile, Dominion of India is using battle plans and will be gaining planning preparation bonuses. They're getting a 19% bonus there with a maximum of 42. And then Fentien also using planning prep, although not currently using the actions. And also, bad army organization, using just a single general. At least they're using field marshals. And I need to check. We have admirals. Okay. Japan at least has admirals. So that's an improvement from last time. Like, very often I won't assign admirals until, like, war breaks out. But the fact that Japan was at war for, like, 2 or 3 years without admirals was ridiculous. I'm really hoping that we see some better naval usage. We're seeing a US naval invasion of Texas. Yes, we are. Interesting. This is actually a really good move. And this is... Was I playing as the US or was I playing as the AUS? I don't remember. I remember I did a multiplayer game where we had 4 players. We had United States, American Union, Combined Syndicates of America, and also the Pacific States of America, each with a player. I think I was USA. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was USA, and I beat the AUS by naval invading Texas. That was one of the Titan series. Are those overburdened generals only AI? Nope. That was player. That one's AI. Usually the AI is pretty decent. They'll very often struggle to put field marshals in if they can't recruit enough, but generally they're pretty good at spreading out generals. Meanwhile, Fentien is moving in. They're about to get another cut-off against these guys, including a Qing tank. We are seeing more and more Reichspakt forces arrive. Austria, Germany, Sweden, and the Ukraine are now all involved here. Of course, Bulgaria is busy in their war against Greece. And there we go, there's the cutoff. Slowly but surely, Qing is being defeated. They're over halfway towards capitulation. They've lost a whopping 635,000 troops. They're down to just 15 factories, 20 divisions, down from 60. So they've really been struggling in terms of cut-offs. Meanwhile, the Fentian government's industry count continues to rise, but it's still like fairly even in terms of factories and manpower. I mean, they've got 30-something divisions. So have they. We just need to see a bit more involvement from the League of Six Provinces, although actually they're starting to move troops. These are all League units, and that's probably what's kind of stalled the invasions from Fentiang. I mean, Fentiang's obviously going to be focusing on this, and then we'll be rerouting those units to more useful offensives. Meanwhile, Bulgaria has finally begun their invasion against Greece. Germany's sending some units to the Bulgarians to give them an assistance. It does look like the Bulgarian, just through sheer weight of numbers, is going to be able to push back the Greek units. I'm not seeing volunteers. Looks like the Russian and the Japanese volunteers have gone home. The Russians are still here. Russia's down here. Maybe they've been told they're not allowed to intervene. That's possible. And actually somewhat likely. Oh, I'm getting messages. Don't know what he meant by that. I'll leave that open. Who is Bulgaria aligned with? The Reichspakt. I blinked and Greece fell. I mean, I think that's probably because they were told to withdraw volunteers. I can only imagine that's why Russia has pulled back. I don't know. Meanwhile, over here in the United States, we have the Americans still trying to push across against the AUS. The AUS seems to be pretty entrenched, but ooh, look at the weakness on those units. That's going to be some really hefty equipment shortages. They've still got manpower. AUS does sometimes struggle for manpower later on in the Civil War, but right now that seems to be okay, but they are definitely feeling the hurt in terms of equipment, whereas the USA seems to be doing fine, although it's the US still gaining equipment from anyone. Yeah, no, they're supporting India. Oh, just support equipment. That's an exploit, and so's that. Don't like that exploit. Don't like it when players use those exploits either. Meanwhile, oh! Russia and Ukraine taking Fentiang provinces here. That's going to be forcing a response. What's the exploit? If you send one support equipment as a Lend-Lease, then you get experience from that Lend-Lease being used. So basically, if you're sending Lend-Leases to people, you get experience back from that equipment being used in battles. So them sending that support equipment means that they're getting experience from that being used. Oh, okay. He was correcting one thing I said. So apparently I said that the Co-Pro won Game 4. What I meant is the Co-Pro team currently won that as the Third International in Game 4. That's what I meant, because they're playing as Co-Pro right now. Anyway, let's go and watch this, because this is interesting to me. These Ukrainians are being caught. They are being... I wonder if they tried to go for a sneaky Fentiang capitulation. How did they get there? I didn't think that volunteers could do naval invasions. Meanwhile, Russia clearing those units up. But yeah, interesting move there by Ukraine. I like it, I like it. Okay, should probably also plug in my phone in case I run out of power later. In fact, I'm going to keep that closed because it's easier for me to see when there's a notification, then I can open it on the phone. Sorry, I'm talking to myself and making plans on how I should do stuff. How did Serbia and Romania fall so fast? Austria attacked them. Austria, Illyria, Transylvania and Hungary all attacked at the same time. Meanwhile, Bulgaria has now taken Greece, so we are seeing a stronger Bulgaria. They did also get given the Romanian territories and the Serbian. So Austria basically gave Bulgaria everything from that peace deal. I didn't even see the peace deal. Did I just miss it? I guess I just missed it. Right, so is Bulgaria sending any volunteers or anything now? No. Oh, Bulgaria is still... I'm looking at Vientiane. There we go. Bulgaria is sending volunteers. No, they're receiving volunteers. That can't be right. How are these? Huh? Okay, so Princely Federation just fell. I guess the volunteers just haven't been sent home, or else that's a UI bug. Because looking here, I'm not seeing any Bulgarian... any volunteers from the other Reichspakt nations. Is Austria AI? No, player. So is Bulgaria. Both of them are players and both of them are in the same faction. Volunteers can do naval invasions now. That was patched about a year ago. Oh, okay. Also, the one support equipment thing lets you keep the Lend-Lease going and modify it even after the war ends. Yeah, see, that's a massive exploit. And generally, I very much look down on exploity behavior. Anyway, so we have got... But then again, you probably should be able to move equipment within your own faction. Volunteers still showing the diplomatic screen until they get home. Okay, cool. That's what I was assuming, because I couldn't see them in the Bulgarian territories. Anyway, the Ukrainian forces are now being cleaned up, although it is costing the Japanese volunteers doing this. The Russians were obviously sent back. The Filipinos were obviously sent back. But the Ukrainians are going to be losing 2 cavalry units. And if I could show you templates, I would probably envision that these cavalry units are very, very small and very, very weak. But I can't do that, because I'm not allowed. So... League of 8 provinces still holding this line, not really involving themselves very heavily. Well, actually, no, that's not true. I am now being unfair to the League of 8 provinces because they are actually sending quite a few troops to defend the Qing borders, which is why I think that Qing is losing so little territory at the moment. Although Qing is still very close to capitulation, but they are causing more and more damage against Vientiane. Meanwhile, the Ottomans, are these guys getting any volunteers? Yes, the Ottomans have Russians and Japanese. Persia has none. Egypt has French. Tripolitania has none. Jabal Shammar has none. So we're seeing limited volunteer units being sent, but really not very heavy. So, Union of Britain, are you sending anything? No. France, Chile. Ireland, Chile. CNT, Chile. Italy, Chile. Germany, AUS, Qing, 8 provinces, Argentina. Bulgaria, none. Oh, Bulgaria's at war with the Ottomans. Okay, so this is another expected move. Bulgaria can basically intervene in the war, and Bulgaria definitely wants to take Anatolia. Now it is massively in everyone else's interest to try and stop them. Because what we saw last time is Bulgaria basically being completely stymied by volunteers here and here. If you control those crossings, it is very difficult for Bulgaria to counterattack and take those territories. And in fact, if we switch over to the Ottomans, we can see that they're completely unguarded. Yeah, the Ottomans really need some volunteers. The Russians are being sent back, but they are being sent just walking, not by train, which is again a mistake, because that's a long way. Buy them a ticket. Meanwhile, PSA, USA, no real changes. It looks like the USA is starting to do a bit of an offensive against the AUS, going for Tulsa, going for Oklahoma. 1.1 million losses. Oof. Casualties are starting to really stack up PSA still like nibbling at the Americans, but the Americans seem to have those borders pretty well contained at this point. But yeah, Fentiang's definitely been delayed in this offensive, unlike last week, so I think that this is the right decision. Using your volunteers and stymieing it. What happened to the naval invasion? Don't think it's happened. It's not even planned anymore. Must have been defeated. Don't know. As a commentator, you probably have lots of people involved with the tournament watching, so if you point out the exploits, it allows the organisers to know what's happening. True, and the organisers are also in this as observers. I'm not the only one. It's one of the things I actually really like. I love the fact that I'm involved with Kaiserreich Weekly. I want to say that first of all because it's a fantastic event. But the thing that I like the most about Kaiserreich Weekly is how ridiculously well organised this is. I think there are 2 admins also in observer mode, like watching what the players are doing. They're able to rule on rules. They're able to immediately respond to exploits and rule breaks and stuff like that. It's really tightly organised, and I really, really like that. And it's something that I started doing in my own community multiplayer games, is for the EU4 especially, we now have an administrator who basically runs around in the background. So, because what used to happen, this is not a Kaiserreich issue, this is a Mordred Viking issue, is if there was a rule issue, those players would then come into chat with me and air their grievances live. And there is nothing worse than putting a player down and saying, no, you cannot do this, while also streaming. And yes, Poet is that admin, generally. And it is so helpful having admins that just are in the background resolving issues and grievances as they go on, without me having to air those issues live. Because there is honestly nothing worse than that. It is so embarrassing, both for me and also for the players. And that was something I learned from the Kaiserreich Weekly games, is saying, yeah, we have these admins and it works. It's a great system. And if there are any other streamers watching, I would highly encourage you to get some of your moderators on board, working as the admins in the background. It is such a massive, massive, massive boon, and it just makes everything run smoother. And because they're also in observer mode, they can see everything in real time as it's happening. And if, say, a player in EU4 has too many allies, they can step in and say, get rid of one of those allies, please. Avoiding civil war bans are allowed for the US. It can't. You can't avoid it anymore. Yeah, I think that the US cancelled their invasions. Meanwhile, the AUS is really starting to struggle in terms of unit strength. It's an AI, I can check this. They are 28,000 guns in the hole, so the USA is definitely doing an absolute number on them there, and that's also why their manpower is starting to really, really struggle. We still have the Austrians and the Germans supporting the AUS. Who are the others? Sweden. We're not seeing anything from Sweden. And in last week's game, Sweden was one of the big volunteer people. Meanwhile, the USA is getting volunteers from Brazil and French Republic. And they're also still getting fuel primarily from France. Is France sending any other volunteers or anything to anyone? Also to Egypt. So Egypt is getting volunteers from the French only. The Ottomans are still getting volunteers only from Russia. Persia's not getting any. Yemen's not getting any. Fentien. Russia, Japan, Philippines and Siam.